Chip and Griff are here. He's Griff. I'm Chip. He's Mike Griffith. I'm Chip Towers of Dog Nation, dognation.com, Dog Nation app. We're glad to be back with you, talking Georgia football, talking Georgia basketball, talking whatever you want to talk. This is an interactive medium, and we love to hear from Dog Nation readers and see what's on your mind. What's on our mind this week? UMass Minutemen. That's all we're thinking about, right? That's all we're thinking about is UMass. We're not looking past UMass. 4-7 Minutemen from what conference are they in? Do you know? Hey.
Are they an independent?
We're gonna call them an independent. They I really do, I honestly don't know. I think in basketball
Yeah,
they're
they're an independent.
are they? Are they the Atlantic 10 in basketball? Aren't they?
Sounds right. A10.
Yeah, the A10 in basketball. A pretty good basketball program. Remember Marcus Camby and all that stuff?
All violations with John Calipari.
That's right. John Calipari led them to.
He wasn't found guilty. He was not found guilty of anything.
He'd never been found guilty.
That's right.
Never convicted.
That's right.
So, yeah, never convicted. Charged a lot, never convicted. Anyway, I actually don't know all that much about UMass in basketball. They have, in football, they have a really good receiver.
Yeah, he's one of the finalists for the Blitnikoff. I just cast a ballot today. Isabella's his name.
Yeah,
he's got a lot of yards.
He does. They throw the ball a lot. It'd be a good game for Tyson Campbell to work on his coverage skills.
Or Eric Stokes.
Yeah,
I thought Eric Stokes played better than Tyson Campbell. I'm not sure why he's not starting yet.
And he played better at Missouri too.
Sure
Remember,
did.
you and I were both like, wow, he really played well. And then the next week, Tyson Campbell was back.
I get it when you get these 5 stars, you want to keep them, but if Eric Stokes is out playing him as a 3-star from Atlanta, but you want to keep those guys from South Florida happy. That's a very valuable pipeline. But man, I thought Stokes was played a lot better than Tyson Campbell, and I get it. Kirby talks about Tyson Campbell's confidence and all that shit, but
yeah,
you've remarked quite a bit that he's been beat a lot this year, and at some point you gotta cut bait, right? And you gotta put the guy in there that's making the plays.
It's been very frustrating for me during games because and Griff is just kind of verbalizing a lot of the discussions we've had in press boxes. That's our job is to sit up there and observe, and there's a couple of guys who've driven me crazy this year. Tyson Campbell is one of them, and the other is Natrez Patrick. Now, Patrick, to his credit, I just seen him miss too many tackles. It's just like, come on, buddy, because Mike likes Natrez Patrick. I like him too. As a team spokesman and leader, he's fantastic. At the end of the day, you got to make the tackle, and he was missing a lot of tackles during that stretch of LSU and Florida. It looks like he's gotten a hold of that. And Tyson Campbell's another one. You've just seen number 3, running down the field chasing somebody too many times, out of position and that kind of thing. Eric Stokes, look, he doesn't have all the stars, and he's not from Miami, but now he's one of those close to 10 flat 100 meters kind of guys, or he can fly.
And to be fair to Tyson Campbell, I don't think he's been the same guy since the shoulder injury at Missouri. I thought he was fine early on.
Yeah,
he did get beat once deep against South Carolina, only once. But I thought the shoulder, when you separate your shoulder, I can tell you, I separated my shoulder as an athlete. When you separate a shoulder, you're not the same guy mentally.
Right.
You're no longer indestructible.
That's a terrible injury. Not only the injury itself when you're playing football, but when you're trying to sleep at night and stuff, right? It's terribly uncomfortable.
Well, that part's fine. It's a subluxation, but what happens with a subluxation is it pops out of joint.
Yeah.
So if you go up and hit somebody, it's possible for your shoulder to pop out of joint.
Right.
And that changes your mentality.
Now you're not as aggressive.
You think about which shoulder you're going to use. You like I said, that's an injury that mentally you got to get through because it changes you.
We have a lot of people on here today. Great to see everybody. I know y'all are excited about UMass week like we are. And no, I keep joking about that. But, hey, it's on the schedule. You've got to play it. This is where, personally, I don't think you necessarily have to have a 12-game schedule, especially with a playoff nowadays.
Or you play a 9th conference game.
Which would be a great idea as well. I like that, too. That's why I also don't get that excited. So this week we had Texas and Clemson, home and homes added to the schedule in 28 and 29. Odds of both of those happening, what would you say right now?
40%.
40, 50%. They may happen or they may not happen. I really, based on...
Well, let me ask you this. What are the odds of Kirby being the head coach here in 10 years?
Ooh, Wow, that's
50,
a.
50,
What do
50?
you guys think?
What are the odds of Greg McGarity being the AD here in 10 years?
Oh, I'd say 0%.
Okay, well,
You
the
know,
new AD
because
may come. What?
because I mean, Greg. It's not to say Greg's doing anything wrong. I think he'll be
Well,
retired
here's the
by
other
then.
thing. And if the SEC does decide to add a ninth conference game by then, do you still want to play this game?
Yeah, well, I think one of those games at least goes away if that
Absolutely,
happens.
because
Yeah,
there's 1 year they overlap, right?
yeah, 28 and
Yeah.
29, and
If
they
you're,
overlap in one of the years. Yeah,
mm,
yeah, but it is great. I love to see Georgia out there hustling and getting Texas. I think I speak for a lot of Georgia fans. Is one I've always wanted to see Georgia go. There's two of them for me, in particular, Texas and Michigan. And Michigan goes all the way back. Georgia played them in '65 in Ann Arbor, um, and never got that return game. I mean, that's Georgia was in a different place back then. Michigan didn't have to pay them a return game. But they actually beat them in '65 in Ann Arbor, which nobody expected and was a big deal to Vince Dooley kind of turning around the program. So I've always wanted to see him get Michigan back on the schedule somewhere. And then Texas, Georgia last played him in the Cotton Bowl in 1984. The old saying among Georgia fans, Griff, is it's still 10-9 in Texas. What time is it? It's still 10-9 in Texas because they beat them 10-9. Texas was ranked number 2 that year, and in the national championship picture, Georgia was without Herschel Walker for the first time, and not expected to do much, and they upset Texas in the Cotton Bowl in their backyard. So great to see them get that on schedule. I'll be surprised if but Clemson. I'm surprised it's taken them that long to get them back on in a home and home situation, quite frankly. But they do have them in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in the Chick-fil-A Bowl between them. So let's get to some of your questions. There's a lot of you on here. Thanks for hanging out for Chip and Griff. We want to know what you want to talk about. We have started, by the way, breaking down the Georgia-Alabama game. They're obviously going to play December 1st in the SEC championship game. We were kidding early. Kirby and the Bulldogs, they're not thinking about anything but UMass. Well, we're not. We're thinking about Tech a little bit, Georgia Tech. But mostly we're thinking about that SEC championship game. And so we've kind of started a countdown. You can read a bunch of stories that are starting to come. First one today, series Road to Atlanta. I broke down special teams today. Griff is breaking down. What are you breaking down tomorrow? Is it defense? Or
we're on defense.
We're on defense. We'll get to all aspects of that game and have them covered. Troy Sadowski, who played in it, loves the Clemson rivalry. There was a time they played every year, Mike, back in the day. He used to play South Carolina and Clemson every year out of conference. But they also, weren't playing divisional play back then. Tony Porter says, "Tell me about Bama in 2 weeks." Really? Is that where you are as fans? Is that right? You don't want to fans tell us on here. You don't want to think about the Alabama game, right? You don't want to talk about the Alabama game because Georgia's got to play UMass first. I tell you where Georgia does have some trepidation. I think always is in playing Georgia Tech. That option and having to face Tech at home is always difficult. Griff showing up on the scene just still shocks him that Georgia plays that game at the end of the year before the SEC championship.
Well,
it's not going to change, but
I talked to McGarity about it, and his point is you got to play somebody, and they're not going to let you play UMass that week. If it's not Georgia Tech, you're going to get assigned an SEC team.
Right.
So would you rather know what you're going to get in Georgia Tech? Now it's unfortunate that they run the cut block, chop block option right now. But if you beat this guy enough and you get rid of Paul Johnson and you get a conventional coach in there, it's not such a bad game.
Yeah.
Because Georgia Tech's not much of a threat. They're not very good.
Not right now.
And they won't be for a while.
Haven't been since the 1990s. So
that was interesting.
lost some light. Yeah. That's
power here?
Yeah. Hello.
Oh,
you're still here.
We're back on. It's kind of interesting. So look at that. Georgia Tech turn on the lights. And just the Georgia Tech engineer in the building cut the lights. So the question is, would you rather?
This is what happens when you start talking about Georgia Tech.
Would you rather?
Took me a minute.
Georgia Tech or play South Carolina? Play home with Missouri?
Yeah.
Or who knows what game the SEC would throw there. One thing that does mitigate it somewhat is that Alabama's playing Auburn.
Yeah.
So it's not like they got a pushover, but that's why Kirby has to schedule a game like this. The week before Georgia Tech. Chip, I'm looking at your story.
Yes.
Chip forgot to do something in here. I'm going to get him to go back in here after the show.
Uh-oh.
You got to tell me who's got the advantage. Now, I think I'm pretty clear. When we do this road to Atlanta, we're going to say who's got the advantage in different
Should I
areas.
put that right up top, right after the introduction? So today's special
I would
teams.
put it at the bottom. After everybody reads all your evidence, then you can put the
Oh,
edge.
advantage. Okay.
Yeah, and I won't spoil it for you, but Chip has got the comparison of the special teams on here. It's a pretty thorough article, more thorough than I thought it would be.
Yeah,
It's
he's a
pretty deep.
translation.
I don't.
Mike said, I wasn't planning on going in quite that
I
deep on
wasn't.
each one of
This
these.
is really, really well done. I think people need to take a look at
Thank you.
this.
Thank you.
Um,
But this is the fun part about it because, we are breaking down Alabama, but for you squeamish Georgia fans, we are continuing to focus on our regular duties, which is to cover
sure.
Georgia's day to day practices. We'll cover Georgia's practice today for UMass. We'll cover the basketball team, which plays Temple tonight. I previewed the game. They're playing tonight. You'll be able to read about it on Dog Nation. And then they got a game coming up Friday night against Sam Houston State. Griff's going to advance that for you. I'm going to cover the game. I mean, we haven't stopped all our normal duties. So our fine reader friend who said, "Tell me about Alabama, the week of Alabama." No, we're going to tell you everything there is to know about Georgia sports at this moment. And right now, coming out of the Auburn game, we haven't discussed that in this forum. I'm sure you did in your forum yesterday, but here's Brooker Chico Derrick says injuries are killing us. Chip is Big Ben ready? I wouldn't say they're killing you, but they are. They have been a significant part of the 2018 season.
Yeah, and that was something when I talk up to the fans about comparing last year to this year. Not only did you lose the SEC Defensive Player of the Year, the number 2 and 3 all-time leading receivers, the go-to wide receiver Javon Wims, and your starting nose tackle along Trent Thompson, another D lineman. But you stayed healthy last year, and you pointed that out to me. This year's team, this offensive line, has been rotating. There's been different starters. There's been guys going in and out. I think the only guy that's been a constant is right tackle.
Isaiah Wilson.
Isaiah Wilson's the only one.
Been
Everybody
a block of granite over there.
Everybody else has missed snaps or missed starts or but now Ben Cleveland coming back just in time because Cade Mays has a stinger and Kendall Baker suffered a knee injury that Kirby said wasn't clear about. So you don't quite have the depth that you had. You're still better off than 99% of the teams in the country.
Yeah,
because Georgia's done such a good job recruiting. But other than those injuries, Chip, I'm trying to think. I know Demetrius Robertson's been injured, but he didn't really play that much. Mm-hmm. So who else are they really missing? Daquan Hawkins-Muckle was one of the big 300-pounders.
He's a guy that I thought was a pretty decent nose guard last year, and he blocked a field goal against Auburn in the SEC championship game. Crickets since then, and I don't really know what the deal is about that. Yeah, injuries have definitely been an issue, and hey, Big Sam Pittman up for the Frank Broyles Award or Assistant Coach of the Year, and I think he ought to win it, especially if Georgia advances any further. I mean, the scenario everybody expects is Georgia lose to Alabama in the SEC championship game, which would probably mean a New Year's Six Bowl, which would probably mean New Orleans and the Sugar Bowl. I think that scenario, Sam Pittman would be deserving of the Frank Broyles Assistant of the Year award because this was a big transition year on the offensive line for Georgia. It wasn't a small thing that Isaiah Wynn gets drafted in the first round, goes to the New England Patriots, and then we're just going to move the freshman Andrew Thomas from right tackle to left tackle, and that's just going to be fine and hunky-dory. And it has been. And he's been hurt and banged up, but mostly been able to play. Yeah. They've gotten mostly out of the left tackle what they needed and all the way across the board. So Sam Pittman's done a good job, and Kirby Smart and the Bulldogs have done a good job, as Griff pointed out, in just recruiting all those guys here. This always shocks me. One of our fine readers here talking about, go ahead and play Justin Fields. Where'd that guy go? It was Wheeler OG James. Stop messing around, Kirby, and play Fields. If you want wins, play Fields. Wow, I love Justin Fields, and they are playing him.
Yeah,
but gosh,
16-yard sack at the 2-yard line.
I mean, are you not noticing what is going on with Jake Fromm and we've learned a little bit about Justin Fields the past couple of games, and in a negative sense. And please stay with me on this. Justin Fields is a good player, and I think is going to be a great player for Georgia eventually. But we're kind of seeing why Georgia's been hesitant to fully give him the offense today, right?
Yeah, I mean, he did not do well when he got put. He had his own drive. He got inside the 10-yard line and he took a 16-yard sack at the two on a first and goal at the two. The one thing, well, maybe one of the two things Fields couldn't do, and he looked so uncertain and just looked panicked going through his progressions. Just looked like a guy that wasn't ready to play yet. And oh, by the way, you've got a quarterback that's 21-3 that's completing 2/3 of his passes and leading the team. I mean, Jake Fromm is the leader of this football team. I don't understand why people want to fight that. And, to me, if you're a Justin Fields fan, your thought should be, hey, hopefully Justin can be effective in a package and help Georgia in short yardage
Yeah,
situations. And then, Justin will compete for the job again in the offseason.
yeah,
But if you're a Fields fan, that's got to be your mentality. I mean, the idea about who's going to be the starter, that ship has sailed.
yeah. A long time ago.
Jake put his foot down and won that game at Florida. Now, had they lost Florida, maybe you start looking. Maybe if Jake had froze up under the pressure. But all this guy has done is come through again and again and again, under duress, criticism from his own fan base, second guessing. I mean, this
Yeah,
I don't understand this. Georgia fans should be thrilled with what they have in Jake Fromm and excited that Justin Fields is there to compete and push Jake and be ready if something happens to Jake, and that you've got a coach who has the wisdom to continue to play Justin Fields in games when it matters. In
hmm,
the first half at Kentucky, again at Auburn in the first
hmm,
half, to help Justin advance and develop. I mean, you're not going to see another program that's got a guy of the Jake Fromm ilk who's going to be pulling him out and playing another guy 20% of the time. Because you know
that's
what this
right.
cost Jake? This cost Jake all SEC honors, statistics, awards, all that goes out the window. And Jake hadn't said a word about it, and I did a story on it. There's a Jake Fromm story. In fact, you can watch the video. He gets asked about Justin Fields in there too. And Jake hadn't said anything about it. He's a team leader. He says, "Hey, I don't care if I'm handing off 80 times or
Yeah.
throwing 80 times. I just want to win."
He doesn't really elaborate a whole lot, but he's very much. Both of us are doing our best to make the team better. And you talking about you or Jake Fromm's as we're supposed to be as journalists. You were critical is the wrong way to
Yeah,
put it. You were pointing out
third and
third and
Fromm.
from.
Yeah,
So third and from last year as a freshman was an incredible accomplishment for him as a freshman. Third and from for Jake Fromm in 2018 was bad for the first
five
half of the
SEC
season.
games.
Yeah,
Yeah.
5 SEC games. But since then, what's he done on third down? I
I
mean,
was
he's
actually
been
going to look at those numbers today, but
yeah.
what's happened is since the bye week, I mean, everybody's back was to the wall. I
Mhm.
mean, Kirby's come out and said he didn't coach a good game at LSU. He's admitted that on SEC Network.
We all agree
Jake
with that.
saying he missed throws. The offensive line collectively stunk. The defense couldn't stop LSU on fourth and one plays. It was a complete total team loss. I lost my tripod there, and I still haven't got it back from
It
LSU.
was even a Dog Nation loss there.
Everybody
Yeah,
lost. We all lost at LSU. And all you can, in Georgia, like, oh my God, they saw blood for the first time. They saw their own blood,
yeah.
and they had to come back to Athens. Oh, the fan base was cashing in on them.
I lost a lot of money at LSU. Not necessarily. I didn't go to Harrah's. A lot of people did, but
Oh, you were in New Orleans,
that
yeah,
was in New Orleans for 4 days. That's an
yeah.
expensive place to eat.
So I mean,
And do it,
everybody kind of had to come back from LSU and regroup,
right.
and that's a test. That's a test for the players. It's a test for the coaching staff. By God, it was a test for us, Chip, because I went and covered the Tennessee-Alabama game that weekend and wrote a column
you
from there,
did. You did.
and
No.
covered the UAB basketball. But anyway, seriously, Georgia, the season was in the balance,
Yeah.
and really the future of the program was in the balance because the next game was on the road in Jacksonville,
Hmm.
at what they call a neutral site against Florida,
Yeah.
with everybody watching. And the Gators were hot. They'd won 5 games in a
They
row.
were confident.
They were talking.
Hmm.
Tebow's there. Marcus Spears is there. Kirk Herbstreit's there. SEC Nation, CBS. The world is tuning in to see, will Jake Fromm keep his job? Will the Kirby train keep going downhill? Or will Florida take over the East?
Yeah.
And by gosh, Jake Fromm went out there and tore them apart.
Yeah.
And
That was a great performance.
then we said, okay, that was a big game. Now you got to go to Kentucky, where they just took out an ad in Times Square. They got the best defense in the country, 13 points a game. Nobody scored more than 20 points. Benny Snell's being compared to Herschel Walker. Boy, you've never seen an environment like you're going to see in Lexington.
Yeah.
There goes Jake and the Bulldogs again.
Yeah.
powered right over them. Nice. Oh, now wait a minute, Chip.
SEC Nation was there again.
Yeah.
They rode horses into the set.
Backs to the wall. This is 2 weeks in a row, Chip, that they've had their backs to the wall.
Yeah.
And here comes Auburn. Are the guys going to overlook it now that they've clinched the SEC East? Can they possibly match the intensity that Auburn's going to bring? The rival that's looking for a payback. Auburn has won 2 in a row. It's back in the top 25. A chance to right their season, make sure their coach's job is. And for a quarter and a half, it's 7-3.
Yeah.
And they're down, and then it's 10-6. And then guess what? Here comes Jake Fromm and the 2-minute offense. What happens, Chip?
The 2-minute offense. I asked Kirby, but that reminds me, I haven't really weighed in on this just yet. But that is the 4th time this season that Georgia has gotten the ball in the last 2 minutes of the half and driven down and scored. And if I'm not, I got to go back and check this, but if I'm not mistaken, in each of those 4 times, Georgia was receiving the ball to start the second half. So not only do you go down there and you get that score, then you're getting the ball back to start the second half. And those are game-turning plays. And then we all know.
And that's Jake Fromm. That's Jake Fromm at the controls at hyper speed, making decisions, making play calls at the line, going through his checkdowns. As Kirby said, it's what Jake does best.
Yeah. Let's see. How does Notre Dame not pick a conference?
Because they got their own network.
They get their own network, and they set their own schedule.
NBC, yeah.
And you'll be covering tonight's the new standings coming out.
I will, and I'm going to be on a teleconference. I'm going to ask about Michigan being ranked at a Georgia.
Do you think that this is a Michigan native, by the way? Do you think Michigan should be?
I'm actually an Alabama native, but I did grow up. But I did grow up in Michigan. I did. I went to Michigan State, and it's not personal. But I just look at Michigan. Here's my whole thing with the Big Ten. Right. And I covered them for 4 years. Was up there covering Michigan State when they were good, when Ohio State kicked Alabama's butt. But do you realize that Northwestern is 6-1 in Big Ten play? Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
They lost a very close game to Michigan. You know who they lost to out of conference?
Who?
Akron and Duke.
Oh, God.
But they're 6-1 in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
I got questions about Michigan. Who's Michigan beat?
Yeah.
Well, they lost to Notre Dame by a touchdown. Okay, so their best outing was a 7-point loss to Notre Dame. Now, listen, I think Michigan's playing well, and I do. They're going down. They still got to beat Ohio State. Haven't done that, but I don't think Michigan should be ranked ahead of Georgia. I think Georgia has done more. Not only that, I think Georgia would beat Michigan on neutral field, like Jacksonville. But I think Georgia deserves to be ranked ahead of Michigan.
Let's hope they don't meet it back in Jacksonville
because of their
tax layer bowl.
Because of their victories. I think Georgia has more impressive victories, and Michigan lost to Notre Dame. Well. Georgia lost to LSU. It wasn't too long ago. LSU was ranked ahead of Notre Dame before they lost to Alabama, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And I think Georgia's got better wins with Florida and Kentucky and Auburn. And I look at who Michigan's beat. I thought Penn State was an impressive win, but beating Northwestern in the last seconds. So my question to the committee tonight, because I'm going to have an opportunity to call in, is say, why is Michigan ranked ahead of Georgia? The Michigan defense, blah, blah, blah.
One of our friends here, Malcolm Ogletree, says, yes, Michigan should be ranked higher than UGA because they have the best defense.
But it's because they look schedule.
Yeah, and again, it comes down to who you're playing against. And I believe me, I don't think Georgia has the best defense in the world, but I do think their defense has come a long way in the past few weeks.
It held Auburn to 10 points.
That's pretty impressive. Now Auburn's not the Auburn that we're used to on certainly running up offense, but they are Auburn, and they do generally have a good.
Here's the Michigan schedule, by the way. Ready for this?
Yes, let's go.
They lost to Notre Dame 17-24. They beat Western Michigan 49-3. They gave up 20. That great defense gave up 20 points to SMU. 45-20. They pounded Nebraska early on. Nebraska lost their first 5 games, 56-10. Beat Northwestern 20-17. I think Akron beat Northwestern worse than that.
And Duke, as you pointed out.
Beat Maryland 42-21. Beat Wisconsin 38-13. Beat Michigan State 21-7. Penn State 42-7. Rutgers 42-7. They play Indiana this week.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking for an impressive win in here, Chip.
I mean, was Wisconsin supposed to be 15 at the time? What has Wisconsin done since then?
I don't know. Michigan engineers.
Georgia Tech guys here is talking about them again.
It don't matter.
Yeah.
It don't matter. It's motion sensor. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Wisconsin. I don't see anybody they beat. I haven't seen anybody they beat that makes me go, oh, that's a good win for Michigan.
Yeah.
I don't know. So that's my question. Is Michigan's 9-1 more impressive than Georgia's 9-1?
Yeah, I don't think so. And especially coming out of this gauntlet, that's what's so different. That's what has such a different feel about this whole week, because Georgia came through a pretty good gauntlet there, as you talked about. I mean, they were
Away from home.
away from home, playing LSU, playing Florida, playing Kentucky, playing Auburn. I mean, let's take Michigan and play those 4 games. How do you think they come out? I mean,
Did they lose one?
I
Probably.
think they'd probably lose
Maybe two.
at least one and
They
maybe
lose to
two.
LSU for sure.
So we'll see. But the good thing about all this is it works itself out. I mean, Georgia, the way it's set up, if they take care of business against UMass and Georgia Tech
Hypothetical for you.
and Alabama, they should be in there.
Got a hypothetical for you.
All right.
What if, what if Georgia Tech trips up Georgia, but
Mhm.
Georgia beats Alabama? Does Alabama go in ahead of a two-loss Georgia,
Yeah, I
even though
mean,
Georgia just beat them?
yeah, I mean that's a great scenario. I mean, that'll be a decision that the committee would have to make. And you know what? When you say it out loud, yes, Alabama will. I mean, is there any question? I mean,
Well, they
that's
only
a
lost to
that's
Georgia by a
yeah,
touchdown.
I know, but I mean, like last year, I mean, they lost to Auburn and
Georgia had to play an extra, and this is what gets you because you see what these games do as far as attrition and
yeah.
how it beats your kids
Oh,
up.
good lord.
Georgia had to play an extra game than Alabama the first week of December. Then Georgia, which was the SEC champions, by the way,
Yeah,
and the number 3 seed, had to fly out to California
yeah,
5 hours
yeah,
to play Oklahoma, the best offense in the country,
yeah,
and Alabama plays a watered down Clemson in the Sugar Bowl.
yeah.
35-minute plane flight from home
Right.
and one less football game.
Yeah,
So you tell me that those two things, I mean that extra football, I mean, hey, Charlie Warner breaks leg. That extra football game takes a toll. You're telling me that couldn't have been the difference in the national championship game?
yeah,
I mean, that's why I think that you've got to win. I think you should have to win your conference, Chip, because I don't think it's fair that Georgia had to play an extra football game and fly out to Los Angeles and play Oklahoma when they were the SEC champs, and Alabama basically got what amounted to a bye.
yeah. You're an executive in the Football Writers
Yeah,
Athletic Association. Do you see? Are they going to revisit that at some point? So the current contract with the college football playoff, is that does that contract
yeah.
dictate that this is going to be the scenario until further notice, or can they meet and
I think
change
it's
that as
fluid.
early as next year? Because I adamantly believe that you got to be a conference champion, and and a lot of other people. I'm not the only one, and I
Yeah.
believe they should expand to 8 teams, because to just take care of the little dilly
Here's the
dallies.
problem with
But then
that.
you got the 5 power conference champions, because if you take champions, then somebody's always going to be left out at a 4. You know what I'm
If you
saying?
go
Out
to
of the
eight,
Power
though,
Five.
if you go to eight, you're going to kill the bowls. You're going to kill all the other bowls.
Yeah,
You're going to kill the bowl system.
yeah,
And right now, you found this nice mix where we still have these bowl games and the playoffs. It's the best of both worlds, I
yeah,
think. You got 3 tiers. You got obviously the playoffs, the top 4, and then you got the New Year's Six,
yeah,
which if Georgia, if chalk holds and Georgia beats Georgia Tech but loses to Alabama, all right. Here's the discussion. You've got a 2-loss Georgia team that just lost to Alabama. They can't sink any lower than the Citrus Bowl, but ideally Georgia would want to stay in the New Year's Six mix and
yeah.
play either in the Sugar, which takes the highest ranked SEC team that's not in the playoff.
Right.
Could that be LSU if they went out? If
Yeah,
they, I
could
would say
be.
it probably
Yeah,
would be. They
yeah,
would probably
could be.
pass Georgia. That would make Georgia in the pool for at-large teams potentially Fiesta Bowl. You know who else is going to be in the
The
Fiesta Bowl?
Fiesta Bowl was in the press box.
They were in the
last week,
press, and
so, right?
you know who they told me if they win out, who's going to be there? UCF.
Wow.
Georgia could be looking at playing UCF in the Fiesta Bowl
Yeah.
if they win out, and if LSU wins out, and LSU gets the Sugar, where they would play the highest-ranked Big 12 team that's not in the playoff,
Right.
Oklahoma, right? You probably have an LSU Oklahoma Sugar.
Yeah, yeah.
So Georgia could be looking at UC. I should probably write all this.
Yeah,
Look,
you
you
probably
get all
should.
this
So
stuff before
we're
we
just
even
giving
write
this
it.
to for yes.
I didn't even write it yet.
That's a good
Just give them the scoop.
scenario to describe it. Have you been to the Fiesta Bowl?
Oh yeah,
See,
several
I
times.
haven't been to the Fiesta
Oh,
Bowl,
it's fabulous.
so
It is
I look forward to
fabulous.
going to that. Last year was my
Oh,
first Rose Bowl.
it's
I'd love
incredible.
to go to the Fiesta Bowl.
Let me tell you, it's better than you even know.
Yeah.
If you haven't been to Phoenix, it's better. It's better than Los Angeles.
What would y'all like?
Better than Los Angeles.
I don't mind going back to New Orleans either. I love that place, but it would be cool to see something different. Let's hear from you guys. We're down to our last 5 minutes. So I'm getting the old wrap up signals in here. There are way too many bowl games. Alan Verbonic says, and I don't disagree with that. Definitely on the tail end of the bowl
Don't tell that to
world.
Tennessee.
Yeah, yeah, Tennessee.
They'd love to play in Memphis against somebody.
Yeah, they're happy for that right now. Anything they can take.
Georgia's been there. Georgia's been there too. There was a time when Georgia was just glad, right? Didn't they have down year playing the Independence one year, something like that?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah,
They,
and those
Georgia
kids,
played.
and those kids need that. I mean, the fans, we don't like. Well, then shut up. Don't watch it.
Yeah,
The kids like it. The fans like it. It depends on where your
and
program's
they
at.
really don't. They really don't care in those bowls, especially if a bunch of fans go or not, because that's not what it's about the television
Well,
deal
they'll,
and all
and
that kind of
most of the
stuff.
time though, they do okay with the fans.
Well, Georgia, hey, look, Georgia's fans don't have any problem traveling
Oh,
anywhere. I really, and if Georgia were to just pee down their leg at this point, lose to Georgia Tech and get blown out by
oh
Alabama,
man,
and then
that's a bad scene. Then they go to the Citrus Bowl. And
yeah,
probably play. I don't know, like maybe Northwestern.
yeah, actually, that would actually be a pretty likely scenario.
Yeah.
Maybe then I'd finally see them play Michigan, but that's assuming Michigan then would lose to Ohio State.
Which they still could, but
That's
they won't fall out of the New Year's Six Bowl.
that's in Columbus, right?
I'm
This
not
year,
sure.
I think
I'm
the
not sure.
Michigan Ohio
They
State
won't fall out of the
game is
New
in
Year's
Columbus.
Six, Chip. They would probably go to the Orange Bowl and play somebody highest ranked ACC team that's not in the playoff, which would be who right now?
Caleb Huff's comment. I'm not going to read that on the air, but it's somewhere.
What did Caleb say here?
Yeah, he just
I'm
said
trying.
he's not giving Georgia much of
Good
it.
grief,
much of-
Caleb.
not
That's
given-
a horrible thought.
Yeah, and he's not giving Georgia much of a chance. Let's put it that way. Here's an obscure question. Chip Gromlich wants to know the status of Kyrus Jackson. Gosh, I don't know. I hadn't asked about him in a long time.
I haven't seen him.
He's out there with the 18 other receivers running around trying to get playing time with Cortez Hankton, who has pared down his rotation, by the way. And so that's tough. Tyler Simmons, I touched on him in that first Road to Atlanta thing. And he is, I love talking to that kid. He's just great. And he was just talking about how competitive it is in that wide receiver room. I mean, Demetrius Robertson's not playing. Kyrus Jackson's not playing. There's a lot of really good receivers that aren't able to get in that rotation. That's the bad news for those guys. The good news for Georgia is there's a lot of depth, and the guys that are playing really,
This
really
just tells
well.
you about different perspectives around the
Does
league.
it?
I mean, really, go ahead and read that out loud.
Does Jeremy Pruitt deserve consideration for SEC Coach of the Year? That's really happening? Is that a true story?
That's USA Today.
Oh, my gosh.
But written by somebody in Nashville,
Yeah.
or Knoxville, because they're part of the Gannett Network.
Who would be Coach of the Year right now? It's never Nick Saban, it seems
Well,
like.
I don't know. It's got to be Nick or Kirby.
Yeah.
I think Kirby's a candidate for it with everything he lost, and maybe Ed Orgeron.
Yeah, Ed Orgeron. Yeah, actually, Ed Orgeron. If they win out,
I think it's got to be.
might get my
honestly,
vote.
though, I would give it to Nick Saban. Because he lost both his.
But if Kirby gets them back in the playoffs,
it's Kirby smart.
But yeah, if they win the SEC,
When do they vote on? But seriously,
Afterwards.
I want to know, because why?
Yeah,
Why would Jeremy Pruitt be the SEC Coach of the Year?
I actually can't.
They've won one more game than they did at this point last year.
What are they, 5-4?
And they got their best receiver back, Jennings, who was out all last year. They got their best defensive player, Kirkland, who was back out all last year, and they've stayed healthy. I mean, listen, I think Jeremy Pruitt's doing a nice job. I do. I think he's done a nice job. But SEC Coach of the Year?
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
That seems a bit.
I think I asked this question earlier. John McMillan wants to know if D-Rob is available for a red shirt, but I think he's not. Hasn't he played too many games. I think he's played more than 4 games.
You know what?
But maybe not, though. We'd have to go back and count.
Maybe that's what.
Yeah, that could be at work.
Interesting.
Very interesting. Feinbaum said Pruitt deserves SEC Coach of the Year. But you know what? The season's not over. It's a moot point. As ridiculous as Jeremy Pruitt being Coach of the Year is, you got to play. The season's got to play out. We got 2 more weeks of the regular season. Georgia has UMass.
Well, they did
Georgia
beat
Tech.
Kentucky, Chip.
Yes, they did.
Which is something they did like 30 out of the last 31 years.
That's right.
And would have done last year if their guy hadn't dropped a pick in the end zone. Excuse me, 30 out of 32 years.
Yeah. We got to wrap it up here. If you got another question real quick, I'll try to catch it. But we got a lot of stuff to get to. Mike and I sitting here talking on the air, realizing, oh, yeah, I need to write that. And that's probably a good idea to write that. And we're trying to give you some Alabama preview, because all due respect to UMass.
You got the Pruitt Coach of the Year story. I'm going to let you
Yeah,
know.
you want me to handle that one?
You handle that one.
Yeah, we'll put a poll up. Put that on one of your polls. Who deserves Player of the Year?
He won't be a candidate.
No,
It would be.
He wouldn't be on my ballot.
Kirby, Nick, or John would be the three
Yeah,
candidates.
I think that's
The
all you need.
Arkansas coach maybe would have been if he hadn't lost to Tennessee. I mean, or excuse me, Kentucky coach.
Oh, I started to say, yeah,
Stoops
yeah,
would.
Stoops.
Have you ever seen the
I
Chad
started to
Morris?
say, oh, Chad
But have
Morris.
you seen the dance video?
No.
Oh boy.
Does he have a celebratory dance?
No, it showed him doing this dance in a recruit's living room. It went viral. It was a couple years ago. You didn't see
No,
that?
I missed
I'll,
that
I'll
one.
see if
No,
I
no.
can find that here.
No, I still need to hear some more, get some more feedback from fans on what yeet means when Georgia goes in there like yeet.
All right, I'm gonna play
yeet.
this.
I think it's the reason I'm waving my hand here is because these lights keep going out there on a timer. You gonna try to call that
I'm
up?
gonna try and call it up. I'm gonna see if I can play it.
Paul Amerson asked a great question here. Look at this, or Amerson. How does Georgia stack up against Bama? Funny you should ask that. We've got a series that just started today on that. We're breaking it down, Griff and I, day by day, now through the weekend. Special teams today, defense tomorrow. We'll continue on with the breakdown. Georgia getting ready for UMass on.
I got it.
Oh, there it is. You got it. Hold it up. Yeah.
All right, hold on a second. This will play over and over. So
Yeah.
can they see it? Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Now it's Coach of the Year.
How did
stuff
I
there.
miss that? I must not have been on social media that day. Yeet juice, John McMillan says. Yeet, I think it means you're gonna eat. Did you eat? Did you eat? Yeet, 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 yeet. I don't know. Georgia likes to do that after they win, and they've done it a lot this season, 9 times. Tonight, Temple plays. Georgia plays Temple at 7 o'clock.
Big game.
They finally got there. Their airplane ran off the runway
Chip of the breaking story
last
on
night.
that one.
Oh gosh, I couldn't believe it. Got stuck in the mud. And Tom Crean, okay? It's I know. I just know how he's wired.
You think he
Everybody
might have
say,
inspected the airplane
Yeah,
after? He's the kind of guy that would get out and look at the airplane.
what's going on? Hey, what's going on here? Can't you get this thing out? Oh, I don't know. But anyway, my understanding is they have made it. They will play a game tonight at 7 o'clock. We're going to have a bunch of practice coverage this afternoon. The Road to Atlanta series will continue. We got some stuff up there now. There'll be some tomorrow. I'll have a Towers take up this afternoon. Practice coverage, man. We got a lot to do between now and Saturday's game against UMass. In the meantime, we thank you guys for hanging out for the Chip and Griff Show. We'll be here next week at the same time, roughly around 1 o'clock or so on Tuesday afternoons. We thank you for being patient and hanging out with us and with your questions. And download the app and follow Dog Nation all the time. Thanks, y'all. See you.